Man, every season when Dark Side of the Ring drops their list of subjects, it's always interesting to take a look at them, to react to them, because everybody likes the reaction stuff. Because oftentimes, just like this year, there's, they've covered so many topics that are well known. They're starting to dig deep into stuff that isn't as well known. And that's what I like about the lineup this year that I've seen so far, is that there's a lot of things in here that I was not too aware of, Larson.
Mm-hmm. Like names you might be familiar with, but not really familiar with the stories behind those names.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So on the docket for that, I'll just go ahead and read these off.
Sure.
And then we'll react to each one.
Sure.
All right, number 1. Hell in a Cell, specifically the Mankind versus Undertaker one. Some really good looking recreations, out of focus Mankind looks exactly like Mankind. So, but yeah, that's obviously well-known stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of curious if they're going to cover what the extent of Hell in a Cell they're going to cover is. It seems like it's probably specifically going to be this match, what went into it, because that's a lot of ground you can cover right there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll cover the history of the Hell in the Cell match and what inspired it. Talk about last Battle of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Oh, there you go. Hey, yeah, probably. Look, anything that's got really super grainy footage that you can barely make out what's going on. Last Battle of Atlanta footage is basically that.
Yeah.
So that always looks great when you're talking about nefarious things.
Now, if they try to recreate Last Battle of Atlanta, they're going to try to recreate it with super grainy video.
I think that's kind of the only thing that you super grainy out of focus. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, of course. That's a given. We're talking about recreations on Dark Side of the Ring.
Big Van Vader. I'm assuming there's going to be a recreation of his eye getting popped out.
I would think so. I mean, I guess, some you see some of the subjects of these episodes, you're like, oh, I know what this one's going to be about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Vader, I'm just wondering what angle they're going to take. He was a former football player, world of professional wrestling, massively successful in Japan, came to the States and had some success in WCW, obviously in WWF, nowhere near that level. So just curious, how they're going to approach.
I wonder if they would take the angle of him being the sort of, stiff guy, the strong style guy, and trying to adapt to the WWF way of things where it clearly did not go over too well.
Yeah.
Because, he lived a relatively long life. He lived into old age. He just passed away a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was it only a couple of years ago? It was 5 years
ago. Yeah.
Jeez, time has been flying.
You got that right.
And so, but he ended up, I think he inducted Stan Hansen into the WWF Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame. And, he always, even by the end, he was seemingly of sound mind and doing pretty well for himself. So
Vader passed away in 2018.
Oh my God, where is time going? That's nuts.
I know.
Jeez. So yeah, Big Van Vader, be interesting. Look, here's the thing. He had, I would think that the nature of his style of wrestling in Japan would be maybe justification for an episode alone. Having your eye popped out is pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
And the dude, they worked, him and Stan Hansen, they did some stiff ass matches.
You got that right.
And I'm sure that they probably had plenty of injuries and whatnot. I wonder if they're going to interview his son, the guy who was on NXT for the early years.
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
Span of time or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun to see where he's at these days. Tony Atlas, see Tony Atlas all the time these days.
Yeah, he was in the Vince documentary. He's been in a number of episodes of Dark Side of the Ring. He's a great interview.
He is an awesome storyteller.
Yeah.
This dude is a tell it like it is guy.
Yeah.
And I love in the Vince documentary, he had the sleeveless dress shirt on.
Yep.
It was awesome. Tony Atlas is always great for a story. In my mind, I had always sort of seen Tony Atlas as just because wasn't Tony in Beyond the Mat or one of those other ones? I thought that there was some Tony Atlas stuff.
I don't remember
one
Tony
of those
Atlas.
90s documentaries. In any event, Tony Atlas. So yeah, no, you know what it was? almost positive it was like a MTV I'm a pro wrestler or something like that.
Oh, all right.
And they took a look at an up and coming guy who couldn't get his shit together and he's in wrestling school, and then like a super old veteran in Tony Atlas. I'm almost positive. And he was living in a situation that when the wrestler came out, it so reminded me of Randy the Ram. Living out of kind of like, I think he was like in a trailer or really small sort of dumpy, apartment. And it's great to see that Tony Atlas is still around and still doing the conventions and still making his way onto interviews and TVs and stuff like that. So, but yeah, he always kind of had the Randy the Ram vibe for me back a little ways anyways.
Yeah, you're right. It was True Life. I'm a pro wrestler.
Okay, there you go.
1999. Look at that memory on you. You're like, oh, my memory's garbage.
You know what, dude? I'm pretty sure I did a Twitch stream on that, like, I don't know, within the last 2 years. So yeah, I had a hard time remembering that anyways. So this next one, Ludwig Borga, I knew the name and I'd probably heard that he was a neo-Nazi, but I never really did a deep dive. Holy shit, there's a whole article that I just read. I read the majority of. Oh, I lost the link here. But there's a great article that just details basically his entire life. Oh my gosh. This guy. This is like the darkest dark side. This is almost on par with the what was the dude's name with the family, the Jake Roberts family guy.
Oh, Grizzly Smith?
Grizzly Smith, yeah. We couldn't even review that one. It was so dark. Billy Jack Haynes, who just like less than a year ago, at the age of 70, 71, allegedly killed his wife.
So this is one of those names that I think for both of us we saw on the schedule. It's like a name I'm familiar with, and I'm assuming the same with you. Like, you've seen the name because you wrestled all throughout the 80s. Mm-hmm. And I kind of vaguely remember reports last year of, him being accused of killing his wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just someone who was in the wrestling business for like almost, what is this, 20 years? 30 years? 20 years?
I think I knew his name because debuted in 82, retired in 96, so 14 years, according to Wikipedia anyway. Mm-hmm. Because he was part of the lawsuit, the big concussion lawsuit.
Yep, that's right.
And then just like, last year, he allegedly killed his wife. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's pretty dark stuff right there. So,
yeah.
Let's see here. Next one. This is probably the one I am most interested in. Hot Stuff, Eddie Gilbert.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting because he's someone who I think his dad was a wrestler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
comes from a wrestling family.
Yeah.
He wrestled throughout the South, wrestled WWF for a bit in the early 80s, and then was involved in a company that eventually grew to pretty significant prominence. That was Eastern Championship Wrestling, eventually ECW. And he was the booker there until he was replaced by Paul Heyman. I was doing a little bit of reading up on him, and I think Eddie Gilbert's the one who brought Heyman to WCW.
Well, he was also, Heyman was a bit of a protege to Eddie Gilbert when it came to booking, because in a prior territory in CWF, which I think was Ron Fuller's territory. I think. He was the booker there in 88.
Oh, yeah. And Heyman was his assistant. Yeah.
Heyman was his assistant. I didn't know that before. I just read it on Wikipedia, but it makes sense because Heyman was brought in to Eastern Championship Wrestling and took over for him when Eddie Gilbert and Todd Gordon had a falling out. So that one's going to be interesting. And also just as a personality, with his own stable across promotions, Hot Stuff Inc. Whenever you look at an Eddie Gilbert promo, number one, he was very much respected for his ability to tell stories on wrestling TV. And I think that sort of influenced Heyman, and that ended up being kind of, influential to how wrestling television is done today. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But as a character, he was ahead of his time as well. When you watch his promos and whatnot, it's like, oh, this is one of those dudes who's not sticking to the dude probably did drop some Let Me Tell You Somethings, but there was something a bit more modern about his presentation. Mm-hmm. And I always love that. On top of that, if he is, maybe this episode will confirm, maybe or maybe not, given that he was the booker in Eastern Championship Wrestling when Surfer Sandman was a character. Maybe he came up with the Surfer Sandman character.
That could be. That could be. Apparently, also, he did an interview in 1994 that's kind of seen as the first pro wrestling shoot video.
Oh, see, look at that.
I know.
Eddie Gilbert. Super. So I'm really looking forward to that one, man.
Yeah, that should be interesting. Really interesting.
Superstar Billy Graham. This is going to be an interesting one.
That one, of course, former WWF champion, had a falling out with the company. Highly critical of the company for a good number of years.
I wonder if the dark side aspect is going to focus exclusively on when he was a Karate Man gimmick.
It's interesting.
Because after
phase of his career, I'd imagine.
After his height of popularity in WWF, he went to, I think, WCW and was a Karate Man.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yep.
I'm sure it'll probably focus some amount on drugs because I do remember an interview with him where he said, I would just lay there in bed and I could feel myself grow.
Talking about using steroids, yeah.
Yeah. My goodness. I mean, I remember when I was like a little kid and I'd have growth spurts, you could feel yourself like you could feel the pain of the growth spurt. As you grow.
You're thinking about Star Trek 3 Search for Spock when he would grow. He would scream out in pain.
You think that's what it looked like with Billy Graham?
I don't know.
Oh, Daphne, super sad.
That's going to be a really sad one. Yeah,
she took her own life within the past, I think, 5 years. Might have been 7, I don't know. But yeah, no, that was tough. I remember being a Daphne fan back in WCW, back when there wasn't a lot to like in WCW. It was always like, she gets it. Her and Crowbar, they get it. I remember just how devastated a lot of people were because she was highly influential. She was very much a mentor to a lot of people, a lot of women in the business that are, big timers today. And so that's going to be a heartbreak, an absolute heartbreak.
Yeah, it is. That's
it
really is. Really, 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 really sad.
The original Sheik. I don't know as much as I probably should about the original Sheik.
I mean, he wrestled for 50 years almost.
And he was the promoter of Big Time in Detroit, which was a big time promotion up there.
He's credited as one of the kind of creators of hardcore wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uncle of Sabu.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just, in terms of telling his story, I mean, that could easily be a 2-parter, you would think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's going to be an interesting one. Again, whenever it's like, yeah, I kind of know that name. I should probably know more about this person, given that I'm a pro wrestling podcaster. But whatever.
Well, you're not going to know everything about every wrestler.
I watched, you know what kind of made, and this is not shade at all, but I did on the Twitch stream last week. I watched one of the Stash Club wrestling videos, the dudes who do like quizzes and stuff.
Yeah.
And they did a quiz. It was name the WCW wrestler. And so there was like a bunch of pictures of various WCW wrestlers. Bless their hearts. They're way younger than us. They're like we could probably be their dads legitimately. And we're old, man. That's what
we are old.
When Jordan Grace was like, I'm going to go celebrate my mom's 50th birthday. I'm like, really? I'm old enough to be Jordan Grace's dad? That's crazy.
That is crazy.
But anyways, but yeah, they knew like hardly any of the wrestlers.
Really? Like, give me an example.
Lance Storm.
Wow, really?
Yeah. But they're much younger than us, man. They didn't grow up on that shit, So I'm again, it's not shade. They're wildly entertaining. They've got tremendous chemistry. It's like a young you and I. But yeah, similarly, I don't feel so bad about not knowing every gosh darn historical wrestler out there.
We're not going to know everybody from the 60s, 70s, or 80s. It's like the 90s is when our knowledge base really kicks in.
Kwee-Wee. Would you know a picture of Kwee-Wee if you saw it?
I think so.
I think you would.
I think so.
There was one that I missed. Do you remember Asia? Big buff girl? They brought her in.
The name sounds familiar.
Well, the name sounds familiar because they brought her in to counter China. It was just a play on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was actually the valet for the Kiss Demon.
All right.
Yeah. That I'd sort of dropped out at that point. Anyways, the original Sheik, that'll be interesting. And then this one, Muhammad Hassan.
Yeah, it looked like he was interviewed for her.
I think he's doing well for himself these days, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's like
I think so.
Is he a real estate guy or something like
that?
Yeah,
he's a relatively successful business person at this point, I thought.
Yeah, man. You know, when you look at this guy, and because I remember watching at the time, I was actually watching at the time, and you see that this guy's got all the tools, and then Vince drops him into that angle at that time.
Yeah.
Jesus. So his story is going to be interesting. How many? Let me ask you this: out of all these, 1, 2, 3, 4, what, 10? 10 episodes. Which do you think Vince will be the big bad in the background?
Oh, wow.
Muhammad Hassan, clearly.
The Tony Atlas one.
Tony Atlas one, yeah.
Probably the Billy Graham one.
The Billy Graham. Oh, yeah, the Billy Graham one for sure.
Yeah. Billy Graham was not a fan of it.
Maybe Vader.
Maybe
Vader.
So I looked it up here, and we were wrong about Mark Kapani. Muhammad Hassan. He's not a business person. He is an educator.
Oh, that's right.
He was a history teacher, assistant principal, and apparently he's works for human resources at a school district now.
That's awesome.
That is great.
That's normal.
Yeah.
And he's probably happy doing that.
I would imagine. That's probably fulfilling work.
It probably is. So that's a good thing. I like when the dark sides have happy endings.
Me too.
You know, because it's like, hey, if it's a dark side with a sad ending, like this Billy Jack Haynes dude, that's not fun. Like they show a picture that he's like talking from seemingly prison.
Yeah.
You know, but then you got Muhammad Hassan. He's like, I'm an HR guy. You know, I sit at my computer most of the day surfing the internet, and then I have to look busy while somebody's walking by. One of them awesome cubicle jobs. Oh man. Anyway.
Oh, I didn't know this, that Muhammad Hassan or Mark Kapani wrote a graphic novel with Shad Gaspard.
Whoa, spoiler alert. They might say that in the end. That might be a pivotal plot point. What's the graphic novel about?
It's called Assassin and Son.
Holy shit.
They wrote a screenplay. Oh, it's a modern version of Lone Wolf and Cub.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Hey, that's neat. Good for them. All right. Well, see. Good job. Anyways, so yeah, let us know what you guys. We got to do, man. We got to get back on it. We didn't even think about this. We need to do another count out.
Yes.
I think maybe next week will be a good idea because this is all fresh stuff dropping.
Yeah, topical.
More ideas for Dark Side of the Ring. I know. I don't even know how we're gonna, Steven Larson's experience at the XPW show where Supreme got lit on fire.
Yeah.
Just
they're interested
us.
in that. We talked to them.
How about this?
That. What?
Because I've seen this on Twitter. People saying Steven Larson fell off. Just Dark Side of the Ring, Steven Larson.
The most boring episode I've ever made. It's a couple of dudes approaching 50.
Oh, no.
Yapping in front of their computers about wrestling.
Being freaked out about how time flies. Freaking out over the fact that they could be the dad to wrestlers. People calling us unks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what it is. It's gonna be they're gonna show footage of us actually playing basketball.
Can they
We're
please?
Like, these guys play twice a week they've done it for years. And this is how they play.
Look how how do they have a shooting percentage in the negatives?
Exactly. You think accidentally they'd shoot better than single digits.
Oh man,
in terms of shooting
good.
percentage.
That's good. Then yeah, just like they're showing like the out of focus like recreation. Be like, by the way, we did not film this in slow motion. This is them playing.
Yes. Exactly.
Anyways, let us know what you guys think about this new lineup for the Dark Side Season 6. Till next time, we'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.